All right. Good evening. Hello. Welcome to our Deep Dive Wednesday class with Guy Finley. My name is Kate, and you are joining us here in Merlin, Oregon. Hello to everyone in the room. Hello to everyone online. We're in for a treat tonight. Let me just make a quick check. Are we all good with my audio team back there? Yes. All right. Very good. If you haven't joined us before in a Deep Dive Wednesday, we are going to, in just a few moments, Guy is going to come on and he's going to give a talk. And tonight's talk is special because it's based on questions and passages and writings and things like that that have been sent in by our audience, things that people wish to discover more deeply and get more insight into. And so Guy has prepared some materials with the questions that have been sent in. And just to let you know, if you were one of the people who sent in a question, we did edit them down slightly just so that it's easier to read. But Guy did read the whole question and his answers will respond to that. So just so you know. And just want to remind you that we're doing these Deep Dive Wednesdays twice a month now. And everyone is welcome to send in their own questions or, maybe something you've heard Guy talk about in this work. An idea, an inner life principle, something that you've read from a past master or sage. So you can send those into our website at guyfinley.org/contact, and we just accumulate them and keep going through them as we can. But be assured that your question will get addressed at some point during a Deep Dive Wednesday. And our next one will be in 2 weeks, by the way. So set your calendar for that. Let's see. I think that all we need to do here is that I'm just going to go ahead and read the title and the key lesson, the first key lesson for the talk. Before I do, just a quick reminder to our folks in the room to check your cell phone if you would and make sure that it's off. Online, if you have any tech questions, tech issues, anything that comes up during the webinar, just send us a note in one of the question or chat areas, or you can email me at support@guyfinley.org, and I'll do my best to help. Let's go ahead and get started. Our topic for tonight is throw open the shutters of the sleeping mind and welcome the light that sets you free. Here's the first key lesson. There is only one requirement if our wish is to boldly go where no one has gone before, and that is to realize that not only are we the explorer, but the new frontier is either found within us or not at all.
Are you waiting for something to happen? What if that's the whole problem? Well, actually, it's only half the problem. The other half is that you already know what's supposed to happen. Deep Dive Wednesdays are meetings that we have twice a month, every other Wednesday, where the intention of the time that we spend together is to not just engage you as men and women seeking higher understanding, but to engage you in a kind of broad dialogue with everyone else that's willing to participate in that study, so that in your willingness to often have to tread on ground that you are uncertain about and are at best reluctant to bring yourself in and your experience into that content, it is in exactly that and for that reason that we have these Wednesdays, so that we can begin to do something that, with God as my witness, only God can help you do. I was sitting here just when Kate was reading the stuff. My mind for a moment went to the idea of Christ. And I was contemplating for that microsecond, which in one respect in another world covers all of time. how even though he made it abundantly clear to his disciples, to those who were called to him, to those who were intended in that period of time, as is true in this period of time, to be gathered into a new understanding, born of a new relationship with a completely different order of being, which is what Christ represents, as do any truly awakened individuals, at least the possibility of another level of existence. And there he is, and his disciples, unable to do anything other than love him, because they were called to him, had no idea, could in no way whatsoever conceive of the fact that he was leading them to die to themselves. It wasn't leading them to overthrow the Jews or the Roman emperor or whatever the political upheaval was in that time. He wasn't leading them to new wealth or new understanding that was going to lift them above the Sadducees that they judged all the time. He was leading them into a new understanding that required, if they would go into and through what he was showing them, required that they lose their life in order to gain it. And not lose a part of their life. This is the big misnomer. You don't know how you suffer from it. You don't. We're going to look at it in our deep dive here, if I actually get to the questions. You believe there's a part of you that is redeemable, that somehow or other within you there is some silver lining, and that it's by that silver lining that you can see all the dross that you blame for your dread and fear. And that if you can only just get the silver lining completely spread out across the content of your consciousness, then you would be a human being who is content and at peace with yourself. No such being exists at the level of this human consciousness as we are now. It's all or nothing. And by the grace of God, it can't be all at once because no one could take it. And yet in the end, the all or nothing takes place because where does all come from other than finally seeing the absolute nothingness of yourself? You can't wait to make something of yourself. I don't know that you know that, but that's what your days are spent doing. All of the planning and thinking and the hoping and the wishing and the dreaming, the regretting, the reliving, all of that is all a vain attempt on a part of an unconscious nature. And listen to this, to somehow get over the conflict that is rife in that consciousness by bringing something up out of that consciousness that as it does it, even as it brings it up, it's in conflict with it. We're going to look at some topics tonight, again, if I get there. I mean, I don't know, in some respect, I can't know what Christ spoke about, or any master to his students. I can't know that, what they said. But I do know that there can be no equivocation. And you and I live to have people talk to us in ways that we want to be talked to. We want to hear what we believe we need to hear so that we can become who we believe we are. And that's hell. Underneath the whole thing, there's a principal problem. And I'm setting the stage really for the first one of these things that we're going to deep dive into. Well, I'll bring you in. Do you know what the essential problem is? Can anybody guess? It's your chance. If you talk now, I shut up. The problem is that you live in a I was going to say in a world, but it's not really a world. You live in a consciousness that has made a world in its own image, in which nothing is constant except for the fact that everything in that consciousness is ceaselessly changing. You live in a world where nothing is constant. Nothing is constant, except for the fact that everything is constantly changing and shifting, moving, expanding, contracting. Did you know the sun expands and contracts all the time? And everything corresponding to the sun, everything expanding, contracting, just like breath. Everything is made in that image. Expand, contract. Everything's doing that. Do you know what the problem is that we as men and women have with the fact that everything's changing? Can anybody guess that everything's always changing? What's my problem with that? The problem is I'm identified with ideas and images, and they don't change. So if you do, they say, they go, this goes this way, and it runs counter to the image and the identity I've derived from it, suddenly that which is static and I require to be static so I can be me, suddenly I'm threatened. So I live in an unending state of conflict. An unending state of conflict that I have no awareness of, because part of that unending state of conflict is something that has given rise to it. And here's what has given rise to this unending state of conflict. I know, how about you? I know that I shouldn't have to feel the way I do most of the time. Don't you? I know I shouldn't have to be like this. I shouldn't feel this way. This can't be right. I shouldn't feel like this. I know that, don't you? Yes or no? So if I know that I shouldn't be in pain, what else can I do with the pain that I'm in other than find someone or something to blame for it? That's the only path I have. Because I know I'm not supposed to feel this way. I know I'm not supposed to feel alone. I know I'm not supposed to feel betrayed. I know I'm not supposed to feel angry and lost and concerned and frightened. I know that. And how do I know that? How do you know that you're not supposed to feel the way that you do? Anybody, how do you know that in that moment? Resistance tells me so. I don't have to take thought. It's built into this consciousness to push against anything that it perceives pushing against it. And nothing is pushing against this consciousness save for the ideas that it has about itself, about how life should be, including the fact to the point, I shouldn't have to have any disturbances in my life. I shouldn't have to be in pain. My body shouldn't be a problem. I know it shouldn't be a problem. And all of the things that I think about how to deal with the pain, the suffering, the anxiety, the doubt, the emptiness, the dryness of the heart, the mind dying to itself, all of that business, just talk and talk and talk and talk some more to myself. And you know why I'm talking to myself? To explain to myself a contradiction in my consciousness that the more I talk to myself about it, the greater the division grows between myself and the fact that there is no me apart from the disturbance that I experience. I'm going to say it again. There is no you separate from the experience of yourself. But you want to have something separate from the experience of yourself. This nature requires that there be something causing it to feel the way it does. I'm lost. Well, of course I'm lost. After all, and then I can go into the associations. Look what I did. Look how much time I spent at this. I've got so much invested. How could I be lost at this point? And all that's going on in that moment is that this nature refuses to simply be what it is. With no excuses, with no past to blame for it, no future where it's going to be free from the pain that it can't stand being in, no time when its enemies are going to finally see the light and throw themselves at your feet. No moment where your body is finally going to go, oh, thank God you've healed me. I feel so much better. You can't live without conflict. It can't live without conflict. And everything about our life is the attempt to escape that, when everything about our life is dedicated to creating it. Can you see that? Now, what do you think happens bit by bit when, however it comes about, and may God help you to have it come about sooner, you realize that your whole life has been spent looking back on yourself, figuring out why yourself feels the way it does, and then coming up with some rationale, some excuse, some poetry, some spiritual teaching, some ideology, some political power, some belief, calling on anything that you can find, including the tomorrow that's not quite here yet, where you can just simply relax from the pain of the conflict that is increased every time you look for a way to escape it. It's seeing that begins the process of you dying to yourself. That's really what dying to yourself is seeing the fact that not only have you had faith in something that doesn't exist, including all of the things that it's imagined that will save it, but at the same time that you see all of that, understanding that you have been invited, you have been called to come to the end of yourself so that something new and true can begin in you and be in relationship with this world, so you are no longer a thorn in the side of the world, let alone in your own side. Just think for a minute, what would my day be like if I wasn't trying to prove myself? What would my day be like if I wasn't trying to heal myself? What would my day be like if I wasn't planning a time to come that'll be better than the painful one I'm in now? What would my day be like if I wasn't constantly referencing in my mind friends and family and moving all these people around on a chessboard like some kind of master who knows where everybody needs to be and what everybody needs to be doing, so that I can sit there and be the one who finally crowns the king? And guess who's the king or the queen? Me, who's moving all the chess pieces. These are the things that you have to see. I'm here because you have asked to see these things. I don't want to show you these things. All I earn is your enmity when I speak to you about these things. You can't hide it. But the fact of the matter is that if a man or a woman reaches a point in their life where they start to realize, you know what? I just never stop. It just never stops. It's just looking at this, going there, doing this, thinking this, that. It just never stops. Well, how long will I live believing somehow or other that all of that movement is going to bring me peace? Because do you not understand that's what's going on? What is all that movement other than I need to find a place to rest? I'm just looking for it. You ever seen a dog when it starts to scratch, or a deer when they start to scratch and they're looking for a place? They walk around like this, and then they walk around the other way, and they do a little more of this, throw some dust up in the air, looking for that place to get their body in with. Oh, that's so much better. The Princess and the Pea. So I'm prefacing our deep dive with this idea because it runs through everything in all the deep dive. I want someone to save me. I want someone to save me. And so if it's not some guru or shmuru or some other idiot that I'm paying money to in order to get something that makes me feel better about myself for a few days, then my mind imagines some divinity, imagines some time to come when Christ or the Buddha or God or whatever, I imagine it, and then for a moment I'm free of my conflict because I have the consolation of a time to come when I'm going to finally be in heaven or know something divine. And if you could see it, and I'm asking you to see it, not for my sake, if you could see it, well, why is my mind looking for any consolation whatsoever? And the answer is because it's in pain. That's why it goes looking for what it goes looking for, because even if it doesn't find what it wants, at least the distraction serves long enough to just keep me apart from seeing the conflict is in the consciousness. The conflict is in a nature that already knows how things should be, and that demands that things are the way it's idealized them, because if something threatens the ideal, the identity is suddenly in jeopardy again. And this is, you want to know the summation of all the teachings on the planet? I just gave it to you. Because if I see that, then I begin to be crucified. Not by a God that has set himself against me. I'm agreeing to a crucifixion that takes place when the mind, listen to this, when the mind finally stops crucifying itself. That's when the death begins and the life is revealed as always having been there. When I can no longer take part in the continuation of myself as I've been. And there's only one way that you can finally begin to withdraw from the continuation of yourself. Having said this now for 15 minutes, who can tell me when do I finally begin to withdraw from the continuation of myself? Anybody? When I see how futile it is. When I see that the continuation of myself, no matter how bright and beautiful tomorrow may seem to be, is still the continuity of a consciousness set against itself, and that doesn't know it's set against itself. Let's have the first one, Kate.
All right, here we go with question number 1. There are periods of time, perhaps days at a time, when I'm able to remember myself more often than not. Sometimes deliberately, but mostly something wakes me up to the fact that I'm here. I feel my body, I notice my breath, physical sensations and thoughts associated to those sensations, and my attention is able to stay there and observe the movement of it all. These are moments when I know I am alive and not just caught in and identified with the story that constantly runs through my mind. But these moments of lucidity are always followed by a pervasive sense of restlessness and anxiety that wants to reassert its rule. And now I've realized, even when I'm not aware of this nature, it must be running the show without me knowing. And I think, wow, I know nothing about myself. This process is at times unbearable, and those moments feel interminable, especially when I make the deliberate effort of keeping my attention in what I'm being shown, instead of getting pulled out of it, knowing I'll get immediate relief if I just allow my attention to be distracted by whatever else. I have been studying with Guy for nearly 20 years now, nearly half my life, but the past few years have been quite challenging with a series of shocks that make 2 things clear. 1, I have no alternative but to be more earnest in my work. And 2, that it's life itself that keeps saying, let me give you an extra hand. I'm so grateful for how much Guy's work supports me to stay on track. Your comments will be appreciated.
So you can pretty much relate, can't you, to what this person is saying? Everything's great until it's not, basically. And that I have seen, as a result of my persistence in times of difficulty, that sitting, as it were, above those clouds of confusion, there is a kind of light that if I'm willing to rest long enough in the midst of that storm, I will see for myself that it is a passing circumstance and not the entire content of my consciousness. He's saying that. But then he goes on to say, on the other hand, there are times when, after some of this clarity, and I want to make this clear as best I can, and he alludes to it, or she alludes to it, I do not awaken myself. You cannot awaken yourself. You cannot awaken yourself. How can a man in a dream awaken himself from the dreamer that has designed the dream that he's in? So if what I'm saying to you makes sense, I hope that it does. There are times when all of a sudden I see for a fact, and perhaps as the impulse in me comes up as I'm saying this, and perhaps there is a silent, if not verbal utterance, oh God, how long have I been asleep? Now the first thing is that the awakening of the soul for a split second, and it's not really the soul, it's the awakening of a consciousness that's aware of the content of itself that it wasn't aware of the moment before. Suddenly it's awakened, and then instead of there simply being the revelation of the fact that I was asleep, now the revelation that I was in a dream becomes part of another dream. Because now I'm caught up in judging myself for having gone to sleep. It is the capacity of an individual to start to recognize one of the most important things, and I hope that we can see this together. Can there be a dream without, can there be a dream that you have without the illusion of the fact that the dream is not separate from the dreamer? Can there be a dream that you have without a dreamer? Or is the dream and the dreamer one thing? It is one thing, isn't it? But in this world, when I'm caught up and suddenly I think to myself, oh, I'm in a dream, or I've been in a dream, the knee-jerk reaction is to want to judge myself for having fallen asleep. And what I'm trying to get across here as best I can is that the only way in which there can be the difference in my mind, the illusion of a the illusion of a difference between the dream and the one that is dreaming. The illusion of the difference between the dream and the dreamer. Suddenly I have a shock. I don't think to myself that the sudden shock is because I was in a dream. I think suddenly that I need to get everything straightened out so I can get rid of the nightmare that I'm in. Because I believe in that moment that myself is separate from the experience of that moment. Yes or no? One of the students was up here talking. Of course you see things the way you do. Because you believe that you're different than what you're experiencing. You're not different than what you experience. And the constancy of that belief ensures that there never is this proper distance that you can start to understand, which will come to you. Nice deep breath. I want to show you something profound. My attention, your attention, the attention of all creatures, sleeping creatures, natural creatures, our attention is entirely object-oriented. Our attention is entirely object-oriented. The deer that come for their snacks, their attention is entirely object-oriented, isn't it? I don't know what happens in the mind of the deer. They go, I wonder if Guy's got something out there on the stoop. I don't know if they think like that, but when they come and suddenly, and I don't know how they hear it, down the road or coming up one of the hills, they'll hear something and they'll turn like this. And their attention is object-oriented. so that their identity can't be separated from what they attend to, that natural nature sees to their safety. Attention is object-oriented. You can see this, yes? Oriented to sounds, movements, sensations, and that attention is always connected at that level to what is natural and instinctive for the creature. But what about us? What if your attention is entirely object-oriented, meaning that everything your mind flies to, it flies to it because in the case of thinking about someone or something, when my attention goes to someone or something that's a problem, please follow me, my attention is object-oriented, isn't it? And I believe that the object of my attention is other than the subject attending to it. That's the division. I believe that what my attention goes to and the corresponding experience is other than me. When object and subject cannot be separated. So my attention, all of my attention, one day you'll see it if you don't quit. My attention goes here. And when it goes there, everything about me sees the experience of where my attention has gone. And where's my attention gone to? Has it gone to the person, the place, or the thing? Or has it gone to the knowledge and the past experience of the person, the place, and the thing? That's what it's gone to, isn't it? So my attention, the object of my attention is the experience, that as I attend to the experience of it, something in me says, that experience is because of something outside of the consciousness that's produced it. And the experience is not outside of the consciousness that's experiencing it. It's one thing. This is so important for you to grasp, to see, related to what this person is asking. He says, and when I see this, after I've seen some things, and then suddenly I start to wake up a little bit, it's unbearable. He wrote that, didn't he? I see how mechanical my consciousness is. And it seems interminable. Another word he used. To who? To who? To the me that knows that I ought not have to experience seeing my consciousness the way it is. To the me that doesn't want any revelation that doesn't somehow confirm myself as I've imagined myself to be. So don't you dare say anything to me. Don't move left or right, world, unless you are moving in conjunction with the change I've imagined. And you don't do that, and we have conflict. And that's the perpetual conflict of this consciousness, is that it believes the object is different than the subject. That's the perpetual conflict. That I'm looking out and seeing a moment the way it shouldn't be. And there's no way that my attention goes onto that image and experience unless the subject, meaning the self that's attending to that moment, unless it looks at it, it measures it. Well, that's not supposed to be that way. But it is that way. It is that way. I'm going to say that about 9 times because you can't get it in enough. It is that way. I'm empty. It is that way. I'm alone. It is that way. I'm dying. It is that way. I'm afraid. It is that way. I'm insecure. It is that way. They're idiots. This feeling, it is that way, not because they're idiots, but because something in you has found a way to separate yourself from that subject so that you can be the one who knows the object. This is why I feel the way I do. Every reason that you give yourself for why you feel the way you do is a lie born out of an unseen conflict and a consciousness that's created it, without exception. Are you able to follow what I'm saying, everybody? Now I'm saying this somewhat humorously. Well, what if that's true? What if that's true? I'm sitting at home. I got to do something. Got to go, got to do, got to get, got to heal, got to fix, got to buy, got to eat, got to run. I'm a gotta master. Except for one thing. I don't have a life. I'm so consumed with the illusion that I am other than the experience I'm having, that I never have a chance to realize that the subject and the object, that the self and its experience are a singularity. I never have the chance to see that. And it doesn't want to see that. You have to understand this. This is what's so difficult about your work. You think you want to see things. Don't you? You say, yes, I do. I want to see things. But I only want to see certain things in certain light at a certain time. And the rest of it I don't want to see. Because if it's not part of what I've imagined I should see, then it's unimaginably bad. It's unbearable. It's intolerable. How long is this? Do you ever hear that? How long is this going to go on? When you hear a voice intimate, how long is this going to go on? You're in the middle of making what you don't want go on. You don't know what would happen if you didn't fight the experience of yourself. All you know is to think about yourself and to hope that you can think yourself out of the pain that an unconscious mind creates as it tries to escape the experience of itself. Years and years ago, answering the last part of this thing, he said, this person writes, wow, I know nothing about myself. Can we bring up that second key lesson? Yes. Read along with me. Since what troubles me now, then now is when I must awaken to and address within myself whatever it is that makes me ache. To delay this interior work is to lose sight of the doorway that my own disturbed state opens for me and beckons me to enter. The mind that makes an object of a time to come that's going to be a problem does so that the so-called subject, the me that's examining that time and is afraid of it, has enough time and distance and space to be able to deal with it when it gets there. But the mind that fashions onto an object that it believes is other than itself is already connected intimately. It is experiencing the content of itself. What do you think you experience when you see something that you're afraid of other than the content of a nature that's created the fear? So that the revelation, if you want to use those words, has to be, the problem here is that I believe that what I see as true is true because of the way it makes me feel. But the way I feel is because one way or another, something inside of me is trying to orient itself to this disturbance so that it can deliver itself from its pain in a time to come, not now. In a time to come. Isn't it amazing? To me, it's amazing. Sometimes I'm sitting here and I'm talking. How long are you going to wait for the time to come? I don't know if you've noticed this. I can hold a mirror up for you if you want. The time to come isn't coming. time to come isn't coming. You believe in political, you believe in ideology, in religion, you believe in all these things about a time to come. It's not coming. You and I are in the time that was made, waiting for the time to come. That's what this moment is. Every moment is that. A long time ago, Mr. Howard told this story, a silly little story, about a man who was really angry at his neighbor because the bats were eating his prunes or whatever they were. I don't know what was going on. There was lots of bats, and they'd get in his house, and that would bother him. And they'd be outside when they're trying to have a barbecue, and his wife, or he would scream, and his wife would say, "Stop it. You can paint this any way you want to." And so he signs petitions with his neighbors to get rid of his neighbor's property where the bats are coming from. He hires detectives to go look for the places they're coming from. All of this he goes through. And in the end, it turns out that he didn't know that his house had a basement, and that the basement had a well, and the well was connected to some subterranean caverns. And that everything that was bothering him about these bats was rising up from his own house, from within his own house. And once he understood that, it was no problem at all to seal the entrance from the dark caves into his house. But until you understand that everything's coming up from within you and not being tossed at you or thrown at you from outside, all you know how to do is to find someone, a time to come, someplace, something to do in order to rescue yourself. Do you know what the real illusion is? But you'll never know this until you begin to truly die to yourself. Do you know what the real illusion is? We talk about it all the time here. The real illusion is that there's a you by your name to be saved. That's the real illusion. You think that awakening is going to be some kind of sweet, wonderful kumbaya, and you'll be there thinking to yourself, "I'm awake. Look at this. Look at me. I awakened." No, you awake when you're no longer there. When there's no longer a you measuring, thinking, trying to figure out what to do. There's just an intelligence. There's just another kind of energy. And that energy is completely empty save for what comes into it that directs it what it needs to do to finish the moment that it's in. There's no thought about oneself. Can you imagine not thinking about yourself? Now I could ask you, couldn't I, and say, well, how many of you would like not to think about yourself anymore? And you'll all raise your hands. Yeah, just wait. Let's go to the next one.
Wow, that was great. Let's go to question number 2. This verse in Ephesians differs from other epistles in that the key subject says God's greatest secret is the union of man and woman, but in context of Christ and the ecclesia. Here is the line from Paul to the Ephesians. "For this a man shall leave his father and mother, and shall be joined to his wife, and the two shall be one flesh." This secret is great, yet I am saying this as to Christ and as to the ecclesia. Is this speaking of a collective of aspirants?
Now I have to be honest right at the outset of this. I can give you impressions. But even as I did, because I wanted to be able to share with you some ideas, I don't usually do this on deep dive topics. I spent a considerable amount of time looking through the various resources I have to try to understand some of the language, not as it was written in English, but as stated in the ancient Aramaic. First, some of the interesting things that I found is that people, what a world this is in, sweet God, what a world. People were irritated that that it was written, a man shall leave his father and a mother shall be joined to his wife, and the two shall be his flesh. Well, how come the man gets to be first? Yeah. That's sexist. Or whatever the hell it is that people say. Maybe it should have been it, they, them, and those, and then something happened. Can you imagine getting upset when you don't have a bloody clue what any of this means? Now, back in the day, it's said that Paul wrote this, but it's very dubious that he wrote this. He was either on his deathbed or something was going on around the time this was written, so it's well considered by individuals that it wasn't Paul who wrote this at all. But if we can step aside from the difficulties of trying to interpret something that cannot be interpreted as written, we can start to understand this idea as best we can anyway. When he says in this deal, the secret is great, yet I am saying this is Christ to the ecclesia. The ecclesia is a word that basically means the gathering. And the true underpinning of the word gathering is those who are called. So it's saying that Christ, as he spoke to those who were called to him, tried to convey to them this idea that there must come some point in time. Again, this is not at the physical level, because you have to understand, what do they call it? Back in the day, patriarchy. You have to understand that this whole passage, incidentally, for those who are interested, it's repeated in Genesis. It started in Genesis, not in the New Testament. It started in Genesis. That was the first place it was written. Then it was written again in Matthew, and it was written again in Luke. Christ mentioned it, as Christ often referred to the old teachings in order to bring a new light to them. So the patriarchal aspect of this is that back in the day, the man was recognized as being the active force, the biblical interpretation that out of his flesh and blood came a bone. All of these are terms and expressions trying to convey this idea. And now to the point of interpreting this as best I can that would be meaningful to your work, is that the active and the passive must meet. And it is agape, which is the word that's used here for the love. It is agape that joins these forces. It is a love that isn't patriarchal, that isn't matriarchal, that belongs to another order of being. And I believe that the allusion to this, apart from what might have been tradition in those days, you have to understand how, I don't know if you understand how deeply steeped human beings are in traditions. It's a tradition for you, it's a tradition in the family of man to hate. Anything that challenges what I don't believe causes me to hate. That's a tradition. Why does that mean it's a tradition? That means it's a mechanical movement. The continuation of something from the past into the present. Isn't that a tradition? Yes. But what if all of this is simply saying, as best I'm able to convey it, that when the idea of a man must leave his mother and his father, what if it's saying I must leave behind my past? I must leave behind my tradition. Christ wasn't the carrier. Christ was never seen as someone carrying forth a tradition. He was murdered because he brought to light the question, well, what good is this tradition if it's a torment to you and everyone else involved in your life? So one must leave their past And then the idea of a husband and a wife. And by the way, the actual word man in the New Testament is not a male figure. It alludes to the visage of a male. It's a human being. So simply put, and then we're going to move on, the point I want to make, if I can make it at all, is that we are called, if we are, and as alluded to in this passage, that what is passive must submit to what is active. Not passive because it's weak, and not active because it's strong, but because there is a relationship between these opposites. And the only way in which the relationship between these opposites can give birth to something new is when, by the act and work of somehow or other agreeing because of understanding that fact, they are brought together, the opposites are brought together as Christ brought the ecclesia together, as Christ gathered to those, so is the human being intended to gather in himself the active and passive forces and let a marriage, a union take place within that man or woman, the true agape. That's the best that I can do with that. Yeah.
All right, here's our third question. One thing life has repeatedly revealed to me, but that I am lulled to sleep by time and time again, is that this mind, this lower nature, is not only confused, but is confusion itself. I still find myself drawn to the allure of fearful analysis and indecision and paralysis, along with the powerful sense of desperation, misery, and victimization that comes with the self created by all that thinking and doubt, by even the seemingly smallest decision I need to make. We students often ask you, how do I know that the path I feel I should take, the decision I feel I should make, is coming to me from this lower nature or from something higher, from the divine? You wrote an essay entitled 6 Ways to Know a False Inner Guide from the True One in your life-changing book, The Secrets of Your Immortal Self. I have never read nor heard a clearer or truer communication on this topic, and this book, along with this essay, has never failed to remind me that there is always something higher waiting to light the way through any dark moment created by the mortal self. The 6 ways you gave us to know if we are following a mortal self or immortal self are: 1, the true inner guide fears no outcome, while the false inner guide can't stop trying to protect itself from its own imagined fears. 2, the true inner guide quietly invites you to take a new direction, while the false inner guide first pressures, then pushes you in the direction it wants you to take. 3, the true inner guide is unshakable, collected, and composed, while the false inner guide is always on the verge of coming unglued. 4, the true inner guide never tries to talk you into an action, while the false inner guide can't stop talking about the action it wants you to take. 5, the true inner guide understands that you must make mistakes along the way, while the false inner guide harshly judges every misstep. And 6, the true inner guide remains open and receptive to any life lesson, no matter how unwanted, while the false inner guide shuts down and rejects any revelation that threatens its flattering self-image. I recognize that it would be impossible to do a deep dive into all 6 of these, but maybe a deeper look into any 1 or 2, simply because the truths you have given us here are self-evident and really contain all we need to know about this question of who/what am I following, that so stifles our ability to really live. I'd love to hear you explore as many of these as possible, the aim being to help me see the darkness created by this nature that loves to believe life is so confusing.
So I thought we would, as a group, explore a few of these ideas. Let's take up the first one, if you will. It says the true inner guide fears no outcome, while the false inner guide can't stop trying to protect itself from its own imagined fears. I think that germane to this question of the difference between a true guide and a false guide can be better illuminated by pointing out that this person, as is true for all persons, he wants to know which one to follow. Does the mind that makes an object out of any image, does it actually follow that image, or is it dependent, identified, and attached to it? You know the answer, don't you? So my mind comes up with an idea about what it means to be awakened, to be a different kind of human being. And I have a certain experience, else why would I go ahead and let that mind unfold that way? And I come up with what I think is a pretty good idea. And I'm consoled by my idea. And because I'm consoled by it and attached to it, then anything that comes along and threatens or challenges that idea of what it means to be a holy, divine human being, suddenly I'm in hell, trying to figure out what to do about what just happened with everything that I hold to be true and good. Look what you've done. Look what you've said. You've taken it from me. So if we look at the first part, the true inner guide fears no outcome. How many of you can say you fear no outcome? You can't, can you? So if we can deduce, so if the true inner guide fears no outcome, that would have to mean that whenever I suddenly feel fear, that no guide is going to take me and lead me from that, but the actual guidance is in the moment of the awareness of the fear. Then I'm not following anything. Look, subject follows object. Object follows subject. Subject has associations. Associations create rules. Rules need morals. And the next thing I know, I'm so lost in this business of my mind, I don't have a clue. The true inner guide fears no outcome. I'm sitting in my home. Suddenly I hear the news. I look at my financial statement. I get a letter from the doctor. Who's the true inner guide? Well, I better call on what I believe the inner guide is and try to be strong. That's a bunch of hooey. No, the true inner guide showed me the fear. It doesn't try to lead me from something that doesn't exist. It shows me it only exists because of what I'm identified with. So we can automatically begin to get rid of this idea of following anything at all, can't we? Because if I suddenly see something as being true, am I following the truth, or is the seeing of it the action? The seeing of it's the action. I don't have to try to be right or true or good. That's what conflict is. Because the only reason I try to be right, true, and good is because I have an idea of what it's like to be that, and I want the feeling of myself as someone who is right, true, and good. But the feeling of being right, true, and good is always put into some kind of conflict with any condition that threatens what I've outlined as being right, true, and good, and the next thing you know, nothing is good at all. Yes or no? So the awareness of the dream isn't to follow the true inner guide. It is to realize the inner guide has showed you the dream isn't real, nor is the self having it. Yes? Let's take the next one. Please. The true inner guide quietly invites you to take a new direction, while the false inner guide first pressures, then pushes you in the direction it wants you to take. So, what are some of the directions that you feel compelled to take when things don't go right for you? Anybody? Pat?
Go fix it.
Instantaneous. Go fix it. Terry? I got to defend myself. I got to work this out. Debbie?
Set the person straight.
Set whoever it is that has challenged the direction I'm going in. They obviously don't have the same map I do, and I have the real map, and therefore there's something wrong with them. Anybody else? What is it that suddenly feels like you're being pushed in a direction? Do any of you feel pushed? Now, assuming that we're all on the same page here, what direction am I being pushed in when I'm afraid of something and my fear is telling me, go in this direction? What is it that's talking to me in that moment? Obviously, some aspect of my consciousness already attached to and identified with some image or idea, and something has happened and the condition's threatening it, and now it says, my God, you can't let this happen. You better get busy and fix it. So, what's the true inner guide in that moment? Is it something that's saying, here's what to do to fix this? Or is it something that shows me nothing needs to be fixed because all you are is caught up in an identification with something that you believe has to be fixed? So instead of trying to fix things, you recognize something is fixed in you and clinging to what it's clinging to, and you realize, repeat after me. You ready? It hurts, to cling to anything, including myself. Number 3. Oh, good. The true inner guide is unshakable, collected, and composed, while the false inner guide is always on the verge of coming unglued. What unglues you? Anybody? Seriously, what causes you to become unglued?
Disrespect.
Disrespect me and all the glue comes off. Anybody else? What causes Roger?
Tell me that I'm wrong.
Just mention that I may not know what I think I do, and I will Elmer's you to death. Ellen.
Things go different from how I expected.
You want to see somebody come unglued? I fly into 1,000 different pieces the moment that whatever I have said my peace of mind depends upon is threatened. Babs.
People give me a weird look.
Well, you must be unglued all the time. She said, people give me a weird look. Now, let's just examine that for a split second. You can understand what she's saying, can't you? So let's translate it. When people don't look at me with those gaga, goo-goo, wowie eyes that see me as being the magnificent specimen of the human being that I am, then in that moment, it's quite clear to me there's something wrong with them, and I come unglued so that one of my 10,000 parts can finally push them back into shape so I can be, once again, as I've imagined myself to be. So is the problem that people look at me wrong? Is that the problem? Where's the real problem? The real problem is that I have an idea about how people should see me. You don't know how deep that runs. With God as my witness, your mind it never stops making excuses for itself. Now, if I catch my mind talking to me about what's wrong with somebody and why they shouldn't be this way and why if I can catch my mind doing that and realize, to whatever extent it's true, that I can't possibly be in conflict with the moment, meaning I can't, as I started this talk, I'm in a lot of pain right now. And I believe because the object and subject see themselves different, object you that doesn't see me the way I want to, subject that has an idea about how it should be seen, I believe in that moment the only solution to that conflict is to get you in line with and agreeing to how I've the subject matter of myself. That's it. Do I need to do anything if I see that? Is the true inner guide that which simply sees the fact of that and allows the awareness to be the ground of the action? Or is the true inner guide the one that comes unglued and then lays out the path for you again to prove yourself as you've been? I have to bring it to a close. if you understand and are willing as best you're capable, and that's not to say that you should succeed, as best you're capable of seeing yourself. And from the ground of that awareness, which bridges all of time, to recognize to whatever extent that awareness allows you. Remember the talk title was to throw open the shutters. Can I open these shutters just for a moment? And see with no doubt whatsoever the only problem there is with the moment is that I think I own a piece of it. That's the only problem with the moment. I think I own a piece of it. And as you begin to see that all of your pain is born out of that mistaken ownership, the identification with the object, the attachment, you start to see that light, having thrown those shutters open, that light begins to come into you, and it starts to do the thing that you will think to yourself, I know this is right, but I don't want it. Because what's going to, again, please, the mind, and this happens all the time, people leave this work. Why? Because they start, what's the outcome going to be of this, of what I see? What's the outcome going to be? And in that moment, without knowing it, you're right back into that false inner guide who's talking to you and telling you, well, you know, you're right to worry about this because the outcome is, and then it gives you a subject that it makes from memory filled with fear or disillusionment. And the more you identify with the object, the more you feel that, well, that's got to be true. And right back to the start of this talk, and then I know exactly who I am. It's hard to imagine, and I'll end with this. It's hard to imagine that this work is intended to lead you to a place inwardly where you have absolutely no idea who you are at all. None. Not one thought. Because over time in your work, you've seen that every thought that you take to and for yourself becomes the source of your anxiety and anger. Because every thought you take for and about yourself proves in its own strange fashion that subject and object are different than each other. And they're not. And the mind becomes quiet when it sees all of that. And when the mind starts to become quiet, on one part, you realize this is really what I am. I am this emptiness. But the other part says, I don't want any emptiness at all. I want something I know, and I want something I can bank on, and I want something I can become tomorrow. You see all of this as best you can. I've done the best I can with this tonight. And you cannot escape the changes that take place. You can't escape them because that intelligence and that awareness reveals without any question the real road and puts you in relationship with the real inner guide to get to the third part of this. Let's take a break. We'll come back and have our dialogue.
All right, welcome back to the second part of our class, which is an open dialogue, Q&A discussion time with all of you in the room, all of you online. We have probably about 15 minutes, maybe a little bit more than that. So now is when, if you're online, you can, if you're on GoToWebinar, you can raise your hand. If you wish to speak with Guy directly, we'll unmute you on our end and you unmute on your end and you can have a chat. You can also send a question or comment into the question area. You can do that in the the chat area on Facebook or YouTube if you want. Of course, everyone in the room knows you can come up to the mic anytime. Just jump on in. So I think, since we're short on time, let's just go ahead and get started, unless you have something you want to start with, Guy.
Nope.
Nope. All right, well, I'll kick things off here with a question that came in just now from Francesca. And I sent that to you, Guy. Do you see it? Mm-hmm. Okay, good. All right, so here's what Francesca says. Hi, I was just curious about what Guy just said. He said it hurts to cling to about just anything, including yourself. I had to fight for my son's life from when he was 5 to 10 years old, from a rare disease, and many times I was wondering if I was going against what nature had prepared for him. But I fought so hard that I managed to change his destiny. He is still with us. Is that clinging as well? Shall we just let life unfold and not fight back?
Hi, Francesca. Would that it were that simple to say yes here and no there. It's not the way it works. We just have a mistaken idea that somehow or other every moment is supposed to have the meaning of a story that successfully comes to a conclusion, and then we can go on. Life is really just one timeless revelation, playing itself out in time, Francesca. It would be silly to think, and I don't, not for a moment, that you didn't go through tremendous changes fighting for the life of your son, suffering as you had to have, weighing and measuring all of the thoughts that come into a mind in times like that. judging ourselves mercilessly as we do when we weigh the cost of something, the expense of something against the heart of another human being. Hating ourselves for the times where we thought, and all of us have, it would be better if this person just died. Why are they still hanging around? So that in every last one of those relationships, 10,000 different ways in which the experience that is wrought from being involved in that reveals to us things that we would never understand about ourselves if it weren't for those conditions that we find ourselves in. So that if the condition serves as I'm describing it, for the sake of helping our consciousness become aware of itself, for the sake of this revelation, then how can you say this moment is good or that moment is bad? If the end of all of this is the point of waking up and realizing we're here not just to save the life of our son, and certainly not just to save our life, but to be part of a much broader relationship that helps save the soul of humankind, my own soul. So all of that's grist for the mill, isn't it, Francesca? Can't say this was the good part, that was the bad part. I think that maybe what confuses you, and then we'll move on, is that how do I delineate the difference between the depth of my identification from the extent of the pain I'm in when I think about losing someone I love? How can I separate my identification with my son from the love that I have for him? And yet the misery, a great part of it wasn't just because of the condition of your son, but because who am I if I let him go? What can I do if I don't take care of this? What kind of person am I? He deserves to live. All of the things, why did this happen to him? All of that business that generates a very distinct sense of self. It all is there. And that's why I'm saying you mustn't try to separate these things out. You have to see the whole of something and then not second guess yourself. How many, see, true guide, false guide. True guide never second guesses itself. Ever. How can it, if it's aware of the whole movement and is participating in it, how would it second guess its own rebirth? It can't. There's nothing outside of it to second guess its action. False guide, that's all it does. All it can do is second guess itself. Am I doing the right thing? Is this the right way to go? How should I handle this? What about that? Endless tormenting questions that only exist because the self is trying to confirm itself as it imagines itself being. So I hope that helps, Francesca. I'm glad for you that your son was able to make that particular journey. It's not over, believe me. Do your work. You'll help your son heal in ways you can't imagine.
All right, I have another question to read, but I just wanted to make a quick note to Guy. Your hand was raised for a while. I wasn't sure if you did that on purpose, so I lowered it. But if you did want to speak with the other guy over here, go ahead and raise it again, and I will get you in for sure.
Boy, am I confused now.
Good thing your nephew isn't here, too. All right, so here's a question in the meantime that came in from Jerry. Excuse me. Jerry wrote this after watching a short clip on our website that's called, "Why Do I Get So Angry with People?" He says, "I don't quite get it. Okay, let's think of something. Bad drivers. So let's say a driver does something dangerous and ta-da, here is anger. So I catch myself and I say, what can I see about my anger? Since anger is fear, what do I fear? My fear is about getting me or my car hurt. So I get angry and I let them know by gesturing, etc. Is this okay if after that, if I drop it completely and say, phew, missed me again? Or where am I derailing? I'll have to try it the next time. I'll have to try it the next time I get angered in real time just to see what happens.
Remember, we talked about this a little bit at the end. The inner guide isn't some fellow with feet dangling off a cloud, and it's not some angel going to show up in your room with pizza. The real inner guide is the inseparable relationship that my awareness of the moment teaches and shows me about myself as I am in that moment. I started today's talk with trying to clarify something that's so difficult. It's not hard for me to say it, but it's seemingly impossible to get this to permeate this mind the way it is. I'm in pain all the time because I'm in conflict all the time. End of story. A mind that is no longer in conflict with itself has no problem with any condition that same consciousness blames for the suffering it has. Because it understands the experience of the moment is not separate from the consciousness it is unfolding within. And if I see for a moment, for instance, this anger come up, how many of you know what Jerry's talking about? Instantaneous, you're one of the fantastic four, flame on, just like that. One day I think it'll be like this, although I don't want to be graphic. You've all burned yourself, haven't you? There's no mistaking that pain. There's no mistaking the pain of being set against life. There's no mistaking the pain of having an enemy. There's no mistaking it. There's no mistaking the pain of being afraid. There's no mistaking it. There's no mistaking the suffering involved in trying to prove yourself, what I've got to do, I've got to keep everything in place. There's no mistaking the pain in that consciousness that wants the continuity of it. There's no mistaking it. That's a fact. And if there is, in truth, the fact of there's no mistaking the pain in anger, then do I have to think to myself when suddenly that anger comes up, what should I do with it? Or the moment that anxiety, that regret comes rolling up inside of me, if I'm aware of it, it's done. Because I can't participate in the continuation of anything that's justifying me crucifying myself for the sake of anyone or anything outside of myself. Can you see that? And that's where your hope lies. Your hope lies in the capacity to see something completely. But to see completely, you can't go into thought, which Jerry alludes to. Because that's how, what can I do? I've been studying with you and I kind of follow it. I get, okay, so let's see, what can I see about anger? Well, I read that anger is the result of fear. So I need now to think about, well, what was I afraid of when that guy cut me off? And then my mind says, well, that's obvious. You don't want to get hurt. That's why I was angry. No, that's not why you're angry. You're angry because all of that pain is sitting down inside of you, compounded and compounded and compounded, and you don't need anybody to cut you off in a car to get angry. Do you? Do you need somebody to cut you off? Like Barbara, all I have to do is look at you with a certain way, and I've cut you off, and out comes that anger, doesn't it? That's the best I can do. Anything else, or we're going to go home? Anybody want to speak? 3, 2, 1. We will see, and we will see, and we will see. Good night.